Department of Emergency Management staff, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this event, which has been billed as a high-level roundtable media discussion and workshop. It is indeed a pleasure to address you this morning. Oftentimes, you as vested partners are called on by the Department of Emergency Management to lend your expertise, skills, and resources to support the National Emergency Management System in its quest to ensuring national level readiness to deal with emergencies and disasters before, during, and after. This has implications for all of us. Awareness of the tasks required and the goals we wish to collectively achieve as a collective, as a system. Partnership and collaboration. Synchronization of efforts, detailing our plans and procedures to ensure the system responds adequately to the demands and needs. Resource mobilization and management. What we as individuals and entities can bring to the table is also an area for all of us to ponder. Engineering a culture of safety and resilience to disaster risks and reducing our vulnerabilities. Media, broadcast entities, emergency managers, ICT professionals, emergency services have convened here this morning to discuss and mobilize resources to deal with a significant and critical element of our emergency management system, that of early warning. Effective disaster risk management contributes to sustainable and resilient development. The reduction of risk can be considered a cost-effective investment in preventing future losses. You may ask, where is the early warning situated in this discourse? Early warning systems are a major component of disaster risk reduction. Having effective and efficient early warning systems in place contributes to the prevention of loss of life, property, and contributes to reduction in the economic impact of hazards. Increasing the availability of multi-hazard early warning systems and disaster risk information is one of the 7 global targets by the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Nationally, we have articulated and highlighted the importance of multi-hazard early warning systems to assist us with achieving our vision of a more resilient Barbados and reducing our vulnerabilities to hazard. As you focus your discussions today on predominantly the element of dissemination and communication by an official source or by official sources of authoritative, timely, accurate, and actionable warnings and associated information on likelihood and impact, I implore you not to lose sight of the fact that we are speaking about an effective end-to-end and people-centered early warning system, which includes other critical elements, such as disaster risk knowledge based on systematic collection of data and disaster risk assessments, detection, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting of the hazards and possible consequences, preparedness at all levels to respond to the warnings received, as well as the disaster dissemination and communication of these warnings. Failure in any component or a lack of coordination across them could lead to failure of the entire system. We are here as experts in our various fields to contribute to the whole, contributing to enhancing our system's readiness to deal with disasters and save lives. Let us carve out our roles and responsibilities. Let us identify the tasks we need to undertake and how we can do so for the betterment of Barbados. Be assured that the Department of Emergency Management is here to facilitate, convene, and action as necessary in collaboration with all of you to ensure we find innovative solutions to assisting us in reaching our identified goals as it relates to early warning systems and as we seek to ensure that our system is indeed cohesive and resilient. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hinds. Now, one of the key points for today's session is the fact that early warning is a major component of disaster risk reduction, the prevention of loss of life, property, and also economic losses. I now invite Chief Information Officer of the Barbados Government Information Service, Mr. Tyson Henry, to deliver his remarks.
Minister of Home Affairs and Information, the Honorable Wilfred Abrams, Ms. Yvette Goddard, Permanent Secretary, Ms. Kerry Cox, Barbados Project Lead for BBC Media Action, members of the media, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Now I sound too healthy. I'm heartened to be a part of this important event, which has the most appropriate theme, given the recent climate trends and the outlook for this year's hurricane season. Apologies in advance to those of you who have grown weary of me lamenting repeatedly over my Hurricane Maria experiences while I was living in Dominica. I assure you, and it's fitting that Barry would be here because he was there, and Julia. I assure you I don't wear this as a badge of honor, but rather I repeat myself constantly as a way of encouraging people to understand the seriousness of the matter. The long-lasting effects of being displaced, or if we must be blunt, getting cat-spraddled, is not something that words can simply describe or capture. Here in Barbados, I believe that we are all too familiar with the theory of the threats posed by disasters. However, the gap between knowledge and action is vast. So when it comes time to execute a plan of action, my fear is that we could be left wanting if we haven't properly prepared ourselves and our communities. Timely and clear communication is therefore paramount to ensuring public safety. Having said that, while timely warnings are crucial, their effectiveness hinges on a strong foundation of collaboration. This workshop, bringing together emergency response agencies and media practitioners, symbolizes precisely that. It's an opportunity to strengthen the bridge between those who generate the warnings and those who disseminate them to the public. Before we delve deeper, let's take a moment. I run the risk of scooping Kerry, but let's take a moment to understand what risk communication truly means. It's the exchange of information between experts and the public about potential hazards and the risks they pose. This exchange is especially critical during hurricane season and other potential disasters, as it empowers people to make informed decisions about their safety. Emergency response agencies have a critical role to play in ensuring that we, the media practitioners, understand the nuances of the information they're entrusted with disseminating. This workshop, hopefully, will allow us to delve deeper than just the basic details of a warning, because by providing context, such as the urgency of a call to action, the media can then tailor their messages for maximum public comprehension and impact. Through this collaborative effort today, it is my hope that we as journalists, yes, we as journalists, we're not separate in the GIS. We are very much still part of the journalistic fraternity, even though sometimes I must confess, I do feel like we very much get pitted separate from the journalistic fraternity, just being honest. It is my hope that we are empowered to become even more effective storytellers, translating esoteric information into clear and actionable messages for the public. This, in turn, fosters a more informed and prepared citizenry, ultimately saving lives. As stakeholders here today, we all have to make a concerted effort to impress upon the public that the onus of preparedness and response ultimately falls on them. Having a well-stocked emergency kit, a clear evacuation plan, and staying informed are just some of the essential steps every citizen should take. I always say that practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. So if we don't carefully, intentionally, and consistently convey clear messages that inspire good citizenship, that will not bode well for this country that we call home. As media practitioners, I want us to all remember that we are indeed in the middle, as our name suggests. We are indeed the messengers. So it's important to recognize that the responsibility isn't solely on us in the media to deliver clear messages. What the DEM has shown today with this event is that they understand that emergency response agencies also play a critical role. We as the messengers, or as the saying goes, we as reporters are only as good as our sources. We therefore can only be as effective as the message itself. I am hopeful that this workshop allows for a two-way street of communication, and I'm hopeful that the emergency response agencies can ensure the information they provide is crafted in a way that is clear, concise, and easy for the media to understand. Ultimately, it is for them to provide context and urgency, allowing us as the media to tailor the message for maximum public impact. I want to again thank our Home Affairs siblings, the DEM, for chairing this initiative, and I look forward to seeing how this workshop equips every participant with the tools and knowledge to be effective communicators during this time of crisis, or during times of crisis, sorry. By working together, we can ensure that early warnings are not just disseminated. Only by working together can we broadcast and publish messages that are understood, acted upon, and become the life-saving measures that they're intended to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. And that collaboration between emergency responders and the media is exactly what we are here to deal with this morning. I now invite Barbados Project Lead, Risk Communication for Early Action of the BBC Media Action Group, Ms. Kerri Cox, to deliver her remarks.
Good morning. I would like to first acknowledge the presence of the Honourable Minister Abrams, Minister of Home Affairs and Information, Permanent Secretary Yvette Goddard, Ministry of Home Affairs and Information, Ms. Kerry Hinds, Director, Department of Emergency Management, Mr. Tyson Henry, Chief Information Officer, Government Information Service, media representatives, specially invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you first to Ms. Hinds and her team for inviting BBC Media Action to participate in this very important event focused on the role of risk communication in enhancing early warning, early action, and saving lives. It really aligns well with the reason BBC Media Action has been working in Barbados for the past 3 months. BBC Media Action is the development arm of the British Broadcasting Corporation. We work in 30 countries across Africa, Asia, the Pacific, Eastern and Central Europe. And in these countries, we partner with local stakeholders to deliver positive impacts through the use of journalism, creative media, and research. We received funding through USAID in collaboration with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction to implement the RICA project in Barbados, Risk Communication for Early Action, in Barbados, Somalia, and Cambodia as part of these countries' Early Warning for All initiatives. 3 countries with very different contexts at various stages of the disaster management process, but all seeking to advance how they communicate early warning and disaster risk. We found that communicating risk effectively can be a game changer for early warning and early action. Conversely, failing to communicate about risk effectively, or indeed failing to communicate about risk at all, can fuel rumor, increase mis- and disinformation, immobilize vulnerable groups, and increase risk. In Barbados, what we've been doing, we've had consultations with many of you here today to better understand the risk communication practices here. We held a creative workshop with disaster agencies, media, community, and vulnerable groups, exploring how working together we can inspire and empower Barbadians to engage with early warning information and act not only to protect themselves, but also their loved ones and their livelihoods. Now we're supporting select ministries and agencies in conducting research to better understand particularly vulnerable groups such as the elderly and fisherfolk, and to determine how the findings from the research can be used to enable long-term risk reduction, which is the goal. Following the opening ceremony today, as Tyson hinted at, we will be facilitating discussions with media and disaster agencies on how best to operationalize and enact the MOUs that exist between media and the Department of Emergency Management to ensure that they really fulfill their purpose of supporting effective risk communication. Finally, the Risk Communication for Early Action project will be wrapping up at the end of this month. We're in discussions to see how we can continue the work in Barbados, and because there has been so much interest over the past 3 months, to see how we can expand the approaches and learnings from Barbados to other countries across the Caribbean. So thank you very much again for having us here.
Thank you, Ms. Cox, for highlighting the importance of communicating risks effectively in order to warrant early action. I now invite Minister of Home Affairs and Information, the Honorable Wilfred Abrams, SC MP, to deliver the feature address.
I take no pleasure in doing this, Julia, following your presentation and Kerry's. All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, Tyson, I agree with you. I see fire in here. I see BDF. I see police. All these are organizations. I know that as you become gazetted, you've made it, having shouted at a lot of people over many years of training. So let's try that again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. All right. You got nowhere to give up. I am exceedingly pleased to be here. I know most speeches start with, "It's my pleasure to be here," or "I'm pleased that you've invited me." But believe me when I tell you that I am very pleased to be here and to see all of you for a reason. But I'll get to that. The 2024 Atlantic hurricane season is predicted to be one of the most active hurricane seasons on record. According to early predictions from the Colorado State University's extended range forecast, 23 named storms are being predicted, of which 11 will become hurricanes and 5 major hurricanes. And by major hurricanes, we mean category 3 or more. I take no comfort in that because Elsa was a category 1, and we saw what Elsa did to Barbados. There's also a greater possibility of one or more of these systems affecting Barbados. Hurricane Elsa in 2021 is a stark reminder that hurricanes can and have affected Barbados in the past and are likely to do so in the future. Any impact or the impact of a single climatic event can erode years of economic growth and development across Barbados. Effective disaster risk management contributes to sustainable development, and the reduction of disaster risk can be considered as a cost-effective investment in preventing future losses. Over the past couple months, stakeholders involved in disaster management and response have been working assiduously to ensure that the country is in a state of readiness. All agencies, entities, businesses, and individuals are called on to be prepared and to heed the early warning messages that can assist us in our preparation efforts. And I just want to add something here. We keep talking about being prepared. It's hurricane season, being prepared. It is not just important to be prepared. It is important to stay prepared. I'll give you a little interesting story. So there's somebody last year I know who brought in a barrel of tin stuff. I went by their house coming at the beginning of hurricane season, and there were these two huge barrels, one empty in the garage and one in the living room pending unpacking. So I said, "What's all this? This is my hurricane supplies." The person had a tin everything. Everything that could be in a tin, they had in the tin. As I went back to visit them, I think around October, I asked them, so you still prepared? I said, what do you mean? They said, how much of your supplies you still got? They were down to the bare minimum. Because they brought in the stuff for the hurricane season, as you're told to bring in tin foods, and then proceeded to eat their way through the tin foods. The theory being that you prorate your supplies based on the length of time left in the hurricane season. And we laugh because we think it's funny. But that is a reality of the perception of a number of Barbadians. They may start out saving water and storing water. And as the season goes on and nothing happens, then the water taking up space. So you use the water to water plants, you do other things with it. So by the time you come down to October, right, nobody's storing water anymore. Even worse, the hurricane messaging does not change every year. Every year it's the same thing. From the time I was a child, one of the principal things is stock up on canned foods, avoid what? Frozen and perishables. When Elsa was approaching and we sent out the warnings and we were advising people to make the last minute preparations, following Elsa, we got feedback from Massey, PriceSmart, others. That was one of the principal things that Bajans brought up in their preparation for Elsa. Chicken and beef. Frozen. Bajans rushed to the supermarkets to stock up on the exact thing we told them to not stock up on. So when the electricity was down for a while, people lost a lot of stuff in their freezers and were surprised. I'm going to get to the part where the media is partly responsible for this, but so stick a pin right there. We ask that you, the media, as a valued partner, ensure that you yourselves have put the necessary preparedness plans in place for any eventuality, and that you assist with these awareness-raising efforts, including supporting our early warning efforts. It is vital that we all play our part. Inclusive multi-hazard early warning systems are among the most effective ways to save lives and livelihoods and to ensure the well-being of our communities before, during, and after a hazard. Barbados is one of 30 countries selected to participate in the Early Warning for All initiative, supported by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, which aims for universal multi-hazard early warning systems coverage by 2027. Barbados is leveraging this initiative to improve our national multi-hazard early warning system by focusing on building out an integrated system of hazard monitoring, forecasting and prediction, disaster risk assessment, and communication. We are also initiating preparedness activities, systems, and processes that enable individuals, communities, the government, businesses, and others to take timely action to reduce disaster risk in advance of hazardous events. Essential action that will save lives, livelihoods, and property and sustain our development trajectory as a country. One of the critical elements of any early warning system is dissemination of communication through official and reputable sources of authoritative, timely, accurate, and actionable warnings and associated information on the likelihood of impact. We're gathered here to unpack this element and to speak to you, to what you as stakeholders can do to facilitate this critical element. Now, you do realize that there was an addition to what we normally say. We normally talk about dealing through official sources. I've expanded that now to dealing through official and reputable sources. Why is that expansion necessary? Sabu Best from the Met Services and his Met team did an assessment of exactly how quickly can Bajans get the messages that we want. If we put out an alert through official channels of an urgent message, how quickly do Bajans get it? We discovered that after 2 hours, less than 50% of Barbadians have received the critical message. Less than 2 hours. Sorry, after 2 hours, less than 50% of Bajans. That's not good enough. When you consider that if somebody puts out something salacious, in minutes, the whole of Barbados has it. All of Barbados has it. Sometimes people put out scandalous things about us. And by the time we catch ourselves, and we get our information pretty early, by the time we catch ourselves and are trying to identify it as fake news and disabuse people of the notion that that is actually true, the whole of Barbados has it and is talking about it. But when we want to get out official messages that can save lives, we encounter hell to do it. So, official and reputable, what does that mean? What does that look like? We gotta be practical. We accept that, I think JS has how many followers on our social media platforms? Less than 100,000. I don't know how much the nation has. I don't know how much VOB has. But if we look at any of the media houses, there are individuals in Barbados that have more followers than all of you. There are single persons that have more followers than the established media partners. We'd be foolish to not take advantage of that. The same persons who put out salacious stuff have proven that they can get the information out. I am not standing on protocols when it comes to getting serious information out. So we have spoken to a number of these people. And we have used a number of these sources to get critical information out in a timely manner. At the end of the day, it's about saving lives. Met has indicated that the time frame for us to be able to alert people is becoming shorter and shorter. We know about the freak storm that we had. And the prediction is that there will be many more such events. A number of times as we were watching systems, and we watched them closely, and we have to decide exactly when to alert, what the alert looks like. We did it for ELSA. I mean, ELSA was forming here, then it was forming here, then another piece was here, then another piece was here. We were trying to figure out exactly where the center was going to coalesce. It was moving, if it tacked this way. I mean, that is what we were dealing with. And we had to monitor very closely to be able, as soon as we had information, to be able to put it out. These systems are no longer building and coming across the Atlantic as a nice, neat ball. They're doing their own thing. The freak storm, 1 minute it was there, 1 minute it was not there, and the next minute it was. This is what we are told that we can expect to happen with increasing frequency. So our communication needs to be nimble. And we need to be practical in using everybody who can actually get the message out. And instead of just vilifying them, working with them to be a little bit more responsible in what they put out, helping them to understand that they have a role effectively as media, and putting the protocols in place to dealing with them when the need arises. Recognizing that we as a collective have made significant strides since the Common Alerting Protocol, the CAP-based system for early warning that was launched in 2017. This was a system designed to allow emergency officials to share alert messages with the population using different forms of communication. By leveraging alerts for response activation, we can minimize the impacts of hazards and preserve critical services, thus ensuring the well-being of our communities. Early warning leads to early and better preparation and ultimately mitigates loss. We have in recent times seen the launch of the BMS Insight app by the Barbados Met Services and the BGIS app, Alerts app by the Government Information Service, both of which also provide and facilitate warnings to the public. These services were all designed to provide the public with more early warning information so they can better prepare for potential hazards. To be effective, these early warning systems must be supported by you, our media partners, communicating the risk detected either by the BMS, DEM, or other warning or emergency services. As the Minister for Home Affairs and Information with responsibility for disaster management, I was pleased to sign a memorandum of understanding with 18 broadcast entities, aimed at boosting our early warning systems capacity. This achievement has further displayed the commitment of the media to this process. I'm equally pleased to report that the Cabinet of Barbados has approved the National Multi-Hazard Early Warning Systems Policy, which provides strategic guidance for the implementation of early warning systems. Risk communication also plays a crucial role in enhancing early warning systems by ensuring that information about potential risks or hazards is relayed to those at risk. Focused messaging. I repeat, risk communication plays a crucial role in enhancing early warning systems by ensuring that the information about potential risks or hazards is relayed to those at risk. The timely dissemination of risk information ensures that warnings and alerts are promptly communicated to all stakeholders to allow for swift action to mitigate the impact of the impending hazard. I have been informed that today's proceedings, among other issues, will focus on improving our procedures for timely, relevant, concise, and consistent relaying of messages to the public. I call on you to reflect on how you as the media can refine your procedures to support effective risk communication to the public. How can emergency services and warning focal points assist you in facilitating your duties? How can we effectively ensure that early warnings promote early action and save lives? How can we utilize the channels of communication such as radio, television, social media, text messages, and community networks to alert as many people as possible? How can we engender the change that we actually want to see? How do we influence individuals to adopt a culture of preparedness and resilience across the country? And once again, when I say preparedness, I mean being prepared at the beginning and remaining prepared straight through to the end. As we go through this hurricane season, I urge all stakeholders here today, including representatives from DEM and the other emergency services, to keep the channels of communication and public education open. To the media houses, to our media partners represented here today, you are all key stakeholders in the risk communication process. Dare I say, critical and trusted partners. We depend on you to help us inform the public and to disseminate early warning messages. Some of you are key influencers in your respective areas. The public listens to the warnings issued by you. I therefore ask you to consider how you disseminate these early warning messages. Give your audience a call to action. Encourage them to start their preparedness efforts regardless of the hazard. Your engagement with the public on critical matters relating to early warning can be a catalyst for action and potentially save a life. Just before I end, there's something I've been saying over and over, and may I encourage that this be considered in this workshop. We have found that sometimes when we're trying to get messages out, it's almost treated as a nuisance by some of our media partners. If we want to get a message out and it's critical, and we send you the message and we ask you please to put out this alert, there's no protocol in place as to how to deal with that. And what we have found is that sometimes persons will interrupt their programming, the DJ will read the message, and then they'll go back to playing the reggae or the dancehall or the calypso, and the message is now gone. One and done. One and done. That doesn't help us. That captures only those who are listening at that point in time. That captures only those who are engaged at that point in time. If a message is critical enough that we need to interrupt your programming to do it, then you need to work with us to figure out exactly how long do we run it for, how often do we run it, what are the levels of priority. I love using colors, red, yellow, green, whatever, class 1, class 2, class 3, whatever you choose to call it. We have to develop a protocol where you, DEM, and emergency services must be capable of A, prioritizing and categorizing the message, and then be able to communicate that to our media partners who understand the importance based on the category assigned and can give it the prominence that it deserves. At the end of the day, with the best will in the world, all of us in this together. I will tell you that you've probably never had a government that was more communicative and interactive with the media partners. Our coverage of ELSA was amazing. Those of you who were in the bunker at the DEM with us knew that we gave you updates until we couldn't. Every time we were called upon to ask for a comment in relation to anything going on, we give the comment. Stetson, you know, Stetson has no qualms with calling me in the middle of the night if something is happening and asking for comment so he can be first to run it in the morning. No, I accept he has a job to do, as do all of you. Every single person in this room who has ever called me for a comment or called me for an engagement, I try to facilitate you. Everyone. I don't dodge y'all because we got to work together. So we are now in a culture and we're now in a situation where there is trust between the media and the government. And we try not to abuse each other. Y'all have your job to do. Y'all will not always be favorable to us, but you do what you gotta do. But equally, when we need you, we need that trust to be there, that we are not abusing your facilities. So, we're looking at an active hurricane season. I am hoping that nothing hits us. But if you gamble, I don't gamble. But I know gamblers. If you gamble, you know every year that goes by that we don't get hit seriously increases the odds that we will get hit. I don't want to call it, but I want to be prepared for it. Please, Kerry, Tyson, Kerri, number 2. All who are here, let us leave here today with a concrete plan as to how we will work together when the time comes to be able to get the critical messaging to as many Barbadians in the shortest space of time. Let us expand our minds and think outside the box. Let us put new things on the table. We are breaking new ground here. Let us not be afraid to drill down and break even more. Remember, early warning, early action, save lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister, for those encouraging words. And I look forward to the workshop later as we seek to forge a way forward together. We're now going to have a short video presentation on how effective is information on risk communication in the fisheries sector. However, we know we can apply it to any sector as need be. So I invite you now to take a look at the short video. This was done by BBC Media Action.
I'm third generation. My grandfather would have done a bit of fishing. My dad fished and was also a boat owner. That's where I got my passion, and it's all I know, all I think about, all I do. Fishing, boats is our life.
The Caribbean region is highly vulnerable to natural hazards. The fishing industry, in particular, is susceptible to impacts.
The closest experience I had was I was caught in Hurricane Ivan along with my dad and my grandfather. I'd never experienced things like that before. It actually had the boat spinning all around in different directions. We had to take the boat off a pilot and hand steer. Large waves, high wind, light rain, lots of rain. I guess you couldn't see probably 2 feet in front of you. We was out to sea. We get the weather update late, so we had to ride it out. You couldn't sleep at night. You had to keep the boat facing up and just riding and riding the seas all night. The experience was not good.
With the potential threat of natural hazards ever present, reliable early warnings become especially crucial.
All weather systems are treated with high importance and urgency. We don't take nothing for granted. Once we hear of a system, we put all things in place to protect our investments. The only way really to prepare for the upcoming hurricane season is to stay on top of weather news.
Communication we depend upon as radio station is 900 or 1400 as the thing not coming out. Station not coming out to
charcoal. We just tune into mostly 1400 and 900 cause 900 is a Barbados channel, but we don't hear good on the sea. Barbados short here, and Grenada all the way southwest of it. And just pick up 1400 like, you're home.
We get it around the same time as the public, which I guess we should get like a head start, being that we are actually closer and more out there in the elements. But if we get the information around the same time as the public, we ain't really got the amount of time to actually prepare yourself or get sure in time.
Other than technology, some guys would feel it in the atmosphere.
You see this, pick it up first, the swells and the wind. The wind start to blow a little harder. The waves get a little bigger and the sea get choppy.
There's always a change in the wind direction and it gets really gloomy. So when they say we're having the weather, we're really expecting it by that.
As a diver, I also use the creatures of the sea. Surprisingly, they pick up the weather long before the media houses do. So we know that there's got to be something coming along. The problem we would have is that we have to wait now on the authorities to open up certain places or ports of entry for us. Even though you have to go there for safe shelter, they don't open to us, I would say, in a timely manner. Fortunately for us in Barbados, we haven't had a situation where it requires us to spring into action to help one another in terms of their vessel is damaged or anything. But we have a unity going on, so what we do, we help each other out in any eventuality.
In case of bad weather, we make sure that everybody is secured and have everything prepared. So that is one of the best things that, we can do, help each other.
Food for thought, I'm sure. Okay, that brings us to the end of the official opening ceremony. I would like each and every one of you to follow Ms. Blackman at the back, out to the front for a photo opportunity, and this will be followed by our break, and then we will move into our panel discussion. We'll let the head table lead off.